And I just wanted to say how grateful I am for my family, for my friends, for my health, and for getting to work as much as I've been able to do this year. May your 2020 be awesome! And may we all practice kindness and tolerance and keep our eye on the prize and get to work, and play, and live life to its fullest. It's a good life. Might as well make the most of it. Cheers. Happy New Year!
Well, good evening, America and world, and welcome to a historic first premiere broadcast of Q News Tonight. This is the world's first live daily gay evening news show. It is a mouthful, but it is an adequate description of what is getting ready to happen. Daily broadcasting to the entire world. This is the first time ever that a broadcast, of course you know we're associated with It's Happening Out, the most popular live gay TV show in the world that broadcasts Wednesday nights at 8 o'clock. And this is the next implementation of that. That is a talk show. This is news. And I'm your anchor, Al Ferguson, and I'm joined by two very distinguished guys tonight that are joining me anchoring this historic news show. First is Aaron Darr. Good evening, Aaron.
Good evening.
Are you excited?
I'm very excited.
You're very nervous?
I'm not nervous.
Not nervous at
ready.
all. You're ready. All right. And of course, you recognize from It's Happening Out, Napoleon Plays. Good evening, Napoleon.
Good evening, Al. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. We are super excited to have this product launching today. It is going to be a revolution.
Yes, absolutely. America and the world, as this show progresses, we are going to bring news of the world, of the USA, of religion, of travel, of politics, of gay culture, you name it. This is going to bring all kinds of different kinds of news stories to you. Our slogan is out of the closet and into the headlines, and I think we're going to prove that to you tonight. So, are we ready to begin?
We're ready.
Let's see what's happening today.
All right, and a lot happened today. We begin, first off, we remind you, the best thing that you can do for this show and for our gay community is to share us. Start a watch party. YouTube is going to be our principal platform, but also in Facebook, and you can share us now, and we would appreciate it if you do. Our first segment tonight is going to be what we call Breaking Q Now. And Breaking Q Now is the absolute up-to-the-minute headlines for America, the world, and, of course, the LGBTQ plus community. Our first is about Iran and the USA and President Trump. Lots in the news. The funeral procession has taken place in Taron, and let us show you a little bit about what is currently happening on this story of Iran and President Trump. Watch this.
The funeral of Iran's most powerful general began tellingly not in his home country, but with an honor guard by Iraqi paramilitaries on the streets of Baghdad. Death to America, death to Israel, they chanted in their tens of thousands, mourning an Iraqi militia leader killed in the same airstrike. As dozens of American oil workers began leaving Iraq, its Prime Minister Adel Abdul Mahdi, in the flat cap here, made a point of walking among the crowd. If the Iraqi parliament votes to expel American troops, then Donald Trump may have sharply reduced US influence here and dealt a blow to the battle against ISIS. And so the question remains, was this drone strike early yesterday, without consulting Congress or key allies, worth the consequences?
Well, as the LGBTQ America audience knows, President Trump's home base is only about 30 miles from where we're broadcasting, which we're going to tell you all about. Very special news in a few moments. President Trump flew back in Air Force One yesterday from South Florida to Washington and had many, many things to say about what was going on the Iran story. Most specifically, the Iraqi parliament has moved in resolution to expel the United States military forces out of Iraq. And President Trump responded very specifically yesterday and today in many, many tweets, something in the neighborhood of 14 tweets already in the last 24 hours about it. And many things are happening related to Iraq. And the assassination of the general from Iran. Big news. How do you think this affects us in terms of what you think is going on?
Well, the gay community is very aware of what a martyr can be. We have had them in our community for a long time. And I am concerned about what this might mean for the motivation and the move forward of the people that are now incentivized by this action.
Do you think, Aaron, that the gay community is following this story the way the rest of the world is, or do we follow it the exact same way?
Well, I surely hope that they are, because gay or not, we all can be drafted. And what's going on in Iraq right now is very concerning, especially if we see a complete and total withdrawal of the United States military and the troops that have been there or that could be there in the future. So I'm very concerned that should that happen, and it looks like that is going to happen per what we saw with the Iraqi parliament, what X, Y, and Z is going to come down the pipeline.
Yeah. President Trump had an impromptu press conference aboard Air Force One and flying back from South Florida in the last 15 hours, and basically said that Iraq would become an unfriendly nation to America if they tried to expel American military presence, and they would owe the United States billions of dollars for the investment that the United States has made in Iraq. Do you think that we could not only have Iran as an enemy, but we could also have much of the Middle East as an enemy from these actions of what we're watching?
That is definitely the fear. The series of alliances that could be built up around this action, and by our act of aggression, could cause a long series of consequences for us and for our allies as well. And I think that that's part of what the big fear is with taking this enormous step in his actions that he's called.
Well, we are in a situation of Iran, of course, is our lead breaking Q now on this historic first broadcast of Q News tonight. We have a second breaking Q now news story, and of course that has to do with impeachment. Late this morning and early this afternoon, Bolton has signified that he is willing to testify, and we're going to show you a little bit of the news of this. Watch this.
President Trump's former national security advisor, John Bolton, says that if subpoenaed by the Senate during the impeachment trial, that he would, in fact, testify. In a public statement just released moments ago, John Bolton says, quote, "I have had to resolve the serious competing issues as best as I could based on careful consideration and study. I have concluded that if the Senate issues a subpoena for my testimony, I am prepared to testify."
This is very interesting, as you just saw. So former National Security Advisor to President Donald Trump, John Bolton, said that should he be subpoenaed via the United States Senate, that he would testify. Interestingly enough, he did not say the same thing about United States Congress. So should this play out, and assuming that Mitch McConnell, the Senate Majority Leader, even allows this, and that they have the 5 Republican votes needed to do this, to allow testimony in the ongoing impeachment surrounding President Donald Trump, should they have those 5 Republican votes and then all the Democrats fall in line, it should really be interesting to see that if he does indeed testify, how it is going to affect the ongoing impeachment around the alleged Ukrainian phone call.
Aaron, I'm curious, you're our political expert at the panel for Q News tonight. Is Bolton's offer here, that is breaking news as we speak, does it break McConnell's back and the senator from South Carolina's back to say we're not going to have any testimony when such key testimony now has been placed on the table? He won't be able to refuse a Bolton testimony in the Senate.
Well, he actually could. That's why I said what I even just said, is that the United States Senate, those 100 individuals in the United States Senate are very crucial right now. Assuming that you can get the 5 votes that are Republicans, assuming that all Democrats fall in line and vote yes, that they want to include testimony. It should be really interesting to see if that testimony is indeed allowed, that if his firsthand knowledge in regards to this Ukrainian phone call is actually allowed, if that actually did occur and it happens, what he actually says, how this is going to affect other key players like Rudy Giuliani, like Vice President Mike Pence, like the president. It's going to be really interesting to see how that affects everything. And should that testimony not be allowed, then what is the House going to do? Is the House going to then in return subpoena John Bolton to allow his testimony to be brought forth to Congress?
Well, isn't that part of what's interesting here is that he is requiring or asking for judicial guidance so that he can even learn if what the president asked him is illegal. Can you imagine being put in that situation where you have to question what your chief of staff, what your president is telling you to do, that you're questioning if it's legal? That must employ so many types of doubt in every action that you take moving forward.
Well, it is definitely a breaking Q now standard. We had no idea when this show for a historic first live daily gay evening news, when this was planned by the producers of It's Happening Out, the most popular live gay TV show in the world, we had absolutely no inclination that on our premiere broadcast we were going to have Iran and Bolton in the same top of the show. Quite interesting. We want to move on out of our Q breaking news now, and we want to introduce a guest. And we have a very beautiful guest with us here tonight, Raquel Lopes. And to It's Happening Out viewers, you know Raquel. We're very excited because Raquel is the executive director of the World AIDS Museum. And we're going to show you a little video about this. But this new amazing project of having the first live gay evening news in the world is being broadcast right in the middle of the World AIDS Museum. And this is a long-term commitment to the museum. And Raquel, we welcome you to Q News Tonight.
Thank you very much for having me.
This is very exciting,
really
isn't it?
About this.
Yes, it's exciting. Tell us about what you think about this combination of and collaboration of efforts for the World AIDS Museum and having a daily live gay evening news show.
Well, first and foremost, I think it's most important that in the face of HIV and AIDS in the gay community that we are here as a support, as a place for Q News Tonight to be able to view, to be here. Yeah. And so I also encourage everybody to watch it, and that the support that you have given us is only going to explode over time. I think this is an incredible collaboration that we're venturing on.
Yeah. Now, America and the world, you may not be aware of it, but the World AIDS Museum is on the world-famous Wilton Drive here in Wilton Manors, Fort Lauderdale. As we say it, It's Happening Out, the gayest place on planet Earth. So how appropriate that Q News Tonight would be coming from the gayest place on planet Earth and the World AIDS Museum right here in the heart of all of that. Our collaborative efforts over this coming year are going to be quite exciting. We're going to focus on education and fundraising for the museum, exhibits, special exhibits that are coming. I have never heard of a collaboration like this before, especially in the gay community, where a museum and media have been combined in quite this way.
I think this is extraordinary.
Yeah.
I'm glad that we're breaking ground on something like this.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Raquel, we welcome you in having you in our historic first premiere broadcast of Q News Tonight. We're coming to you, America and the world, right in the middle of the World AIDS Museum in Wilton Manors, Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Raquel, sit still a moment as we move into a new segment that we have in the news tonight called Q Up the World. Now our segments, you'll notice of Q. Q means queer. And it is a queer eye on different news stories. So we're queuing up, the little play on words there. And we begin with the world. And we are going to, first, in our world news, and queuing up the world news, we're going to go to Bogota, Colombia. The mayor of the first LGBT mayor has been sworn in the last number of days, and we want to show you this. Watch this.
Voters in Colombia's capital, Bogota, elected a woman for the first time in the city's history.
We united, we won, and we made history.
Claudia Lopez, an openly gay politician running on a centrist anti-corruption platform, was just one of many surprising results in Sunday's local and regional contests in this usually conservative country.
That is right. Claudia Lopez has taken on the mantle of Bogota's first LGBTQ and first woman mayor to ever be sworn in just at the beginning of this year. Now, what's really of note in that position is that it is the second most important position in all of Colombia, right after the president itself. And she won with over 35% of the vote, running in the Green Party. And it was a very inclusive and historic win for Bogota to actually have that happen. Now, can you guys imagine, put yourself in that position to be in a country where this is the first, where you're having your first woman and your first LGBTQ representative come to take office, and an important mantle at that. How can you imagine that this actually pushes people to be better and to really want to be involved in politics?
I think one of the exciting things about this news of her being sworn in is, of course, as you all know, in April, here in South Florida, one of the largest pride events in the world will take place, and it's called Pride of the Americas. And Pride of the Americas is celebrating the collaborative nature of the LGBTQ community in North America, Central America, the Caribbean, and South America. And her being sworn in as mayor of a capital of a major country like Colombia is a representation of how valuable Pride of the Americas is going to be next year. We're very excited about what we're watching in Colombia. Let's continue and queue up the world, and we want to talk about Belize. Belize has just recently, in the fourth quarter, they passed a law in their Senate to eliminate sodomy law in Belize. It was illegal, totally illegal in terms of sodomy, homosexuality in Belize. It was appealed, and the Court of Appeals in Belize just since New Year's upheld the new ruling to strike down sodomy laws in Belize. And we're reporting in Q Up the World that Belize is definitely now on track to decriminalize, first step, and then legalize homosexuality in Belize and Central America. We have a note here that you notice a new set for us here in the middle of the World AIDS Museum, very different than what we've done at It's Happening Out. Watch Wednesday night, actually. You're going to see some interesting new things for It's Happening Out, the most popular live gay TV show in the world. And we want to thank Concepto Modern Living here in South Florida for the courtesy of the creation of our new set. We thank them very much. We move into our next segment called Q Up the USA. And our lead story in Queuing Up USA News has to do with the presidential election, but specifically Mayor Pete. Not doing very well among young voters, which caught us by surprise. We've prepared this for you. Watch this.
And if you became president, you would be the youngest president in history. And yet you don't have a majority of young voters in this country, according to polls. Is there a way in which you're out of touch with your own generation?
No, but it is certainly the case that often younger candidates tend to attract more support from older voters. But we are building a coalition that's going to draw voters from every part of this country. Now, certainly
you're at 3% and 4% among people under the age of 44 in South Carolina. It's almost as bad as minority voters.
So as you just saw, Mayor Pete is not doing as well as he'd like to with young voters.
With you and you.
With us.
But doing pretty good with me.
I guess he's doing pretty good with you. But does that really matter in the long haul? I mean, we talk so often about young people and whether or not they actually turn out and vote. So is it really going to matter in those very important early states like Iowa and New Hampshire? What do you think? Do you think it's going to
Well,
happen?
the CBS poll that just came out over the weekend shows Biden and Bernie Sanders and Mayor Pete exactly in a dead heat tie at like 27 or 28% each.
Yeah.
So if they could get some more Gen Zers and some more millennials, Mayor Pete would be happy about it. So there's a chance for him to win the Iowa caucus. But why do you think he's not doing well in millennials?
I definitely feel a little bit conflicted because, of course, I want to support a candidate, the first ever LGBTQ presidential candidate to be running for office. But at the same time, that isn't enough. And I don't think it should be enough to rally behind him in anything that he is doing or everything that he is doing. And just because he is a part of the LGBTQ spectrum, because he identifies as gay, does that mean that I stand for all of the beliefs that he has put forward and that he's running with office? I don't think so. There are other candidates that match my beliefs more.
You know, and it's interesting too, today is January 6th. February 3rd is the Iowa caucus. 2 days, 10 days is a lifetime in politics, as we know. If we look at the Iowa polls, and around this time in 2004, John Kerry was actually right around where Amy Klobuchar was. So somewhere between 11-15%. And we all know how that turned out. So let the next couple of weeks play out and see what's actually going to happen.
Terrific point. Continuing and queuing up the USA, we'd like to report about Canton, Georgia. Deep South, a purplish to red state. They have sworn in this week in the new year the first openly gay mayor in this relatively conservative southern town for the first time ever. Napoleon, tell us a little about that.
That's right. Canton, Georgia, just a little bit outside of Atlanta, has sworn in its first ever elected LGBTQ official. And he won with over 75% of the vote and by 50 points. His name is Bill Grant. He beat out competition Dwight Pullen. And this all happened earlier this year. So it's very exciting to see Canton sworn in as the first openly gay mayor of any location.
Our final cue up the USA news that we report to you tonight, America, is about a trans murder. We watched and followed trans very closely. A trans taxi driver was killed for being trans in the act of doing their job. It is the first trans murder of 2020, and his name was Dustin Parker, 25 years old, in Oklahoma, and murdered on January 1st. And it is the first known murder in 2020 in the trans community. We are going to, at Q News tonight, report on violence against the trans community, I'm sure, all through the year. It was quite horrific in 2019, and it started off on day one in 2020. We move to our next segment of Q Up Vote 2020, and that is an interesting story that took place in Delaware. The county GOP chairman has resigned for calling someone a faggot. We have a little news about this. Watch this.
A Republican Party chairman in Delaware is stepping down after using a derogatory term for gay men. The state Republican chairwoman asked Newcastle County Republican Party chairman Chris Rowe to resign. Rowe told the Associated Press he made the decision, quote, begrudgingly. He also told the Delaware News Journal earlier he won't apologize for using the slur, calling it locker room talk with a close friend, and saying he isn't homophobic.
Room talk. Calling a member of the LGBT community locker talk in the position that he finds himself in. So let's say his name, Chris Rowe. So he finds himself to be a GOP chairman.
A former chairman.
Now a former chairman, thanks to the state GOP chairwoman Jane Brady, who asked for his resignation, and he so thankfully did. But it's actually important to note that this actually is not an isolated incident within the GOP in the state of Delaware. Earlier last year, you saw in Sussex County in Delaware, you actually saw a GOP chairwoman by the name of Nellie Jordan make similar comments that were derogatory, not just towards the LGBT community, but blaming people who are Jewish, making anti-Semitic comments, blaming them for the impeachment of Donald Trump. So it seems to be not just an issue for the LGBT community, but widespread.
Shocking in 2020 that somebody can openly, especially in a political reference, use the word faggot.
But he did suffer from it. by having to step down.
Consequences.
We're seeing
Yes.
some consequences at least happen.
We move into another segment at Q News tonight that we call Q Up Entertainment, and there's a lot of entertainment in the news. First off, last night, the Golden Globes, and Elton John and the Rocket Man was a big winner. Napoleon, tell us a little about that.
That's right. Rocket Man, the biopic starring Taron Egerton about Elton John, a gay rock legend, known household name, won 2 Golden Globes yesterday out of 3 that it was nominated for. That includes Best Actor in a Comedy Musical and Best Original Song. This, of course, happened on January 5th, and it was a historic night for Elton John because he was able to take home those 2 Golden Globes. And it was also a big upset for Egerton, who won over other actors such as Daniel Craig. That's right. And even more importantly, this was a show that had a lot of controversy about it because it was casting a straight actor in an LGBTQ role. And one of the things that Egerton was very quick to point out is that he didn't want to create a caricature or overcamp any character that he was playing like Elton John. He wanted it to be a real person, and I think that he was able to accomplish that.
I thought it was interesting. Of course, we would love to be showing you video, but NBC has locked the video down so tightly we can't show it to you, or they would pull us off the air. But one of the things I thought was interesting last night at the Golden Globes, in summary on the Golden Globes, is Elton John was giddy last night. At his age, it was the first time where I've seen him animated in quite a long time, so it must have been quite a spectacular experience for him. In other queuing up entertainment news, Jerry Herman. I Am What I Am has died over the holiday, and we report on that. A lot of Gen Zs and millennials might not know who Jerry Herman is, but this is an icon in Broadway music. Watch this.
The Broadway community is remembering Tony Award-winning composer Jerry Herman. Herman created 10 Broadway shows and contributed to many more. He's best known for writing the music and lyrics for hits like Hello Dolly and Maine, for which he won Grammys. The native New Yorker passed away at age 88. Actor Harvey Fierstein tweeted, "Jerry Herman lost his hard-fought battle last night, and we lost one of the greats. A collaborator and friend for almost 40 years, I cannot thank him enough for his love, trust, encouragement, support, and laughter. Well done, Mr. Herman. Bravo."
Well, of course, his most famous Broadway musical and movie is Hello Dolly. But I'm sure, while the LGBT community loves that Broadway show, of course, they love...
And La Cage.
And La Cage aux Folles is what I was coming to, and the iconic song, I Am What I Am. Any quick thoughts about Jerry Herman's passing?
I think that he created a huge legacy for himself. He, of course, won the 2009 Tony Award for Lifetime Achievement, and while he passes, his work lives on, and that's all any artist could really hope for.
Yeah.
There's one thing that I'll always remember about Jerry Herman, and it's this: money is like manure. It doesn't do anyone or anything any good unless it's spread around, encouraging young things to grow.
When a Gen Z or a millennial can quote a 50-year-old musical movie, the world is going to be okay. The world's going to be okay. Let's continue on in Q Up Entertainment, and that is about RuPaul. RuPaul's in the news this week, became a Hall of Famer in California, but it was announced over the weekend that RuPaul's talk show is over. Aaron, tell us a little about that.
So yes, our sister RuPaul Charles, Emmy Award winner RuPaul Charles, had a TV show, a talk show that did a 3-week run last summer, and it was not picked up. So I have a feeling that she's no longer going to be saying, "Can I get an amen?"
Yeah.
But she has about 37 other shows, so let's be real.
I was going to say, all over the planet.
Yeah, so she's all over the place.
Don't
so
cry for RuPaul. She'll be fine.
Yes.
She'll be fine. All right. And other queuing up entertainment news, and that is Lily Tomlin was in the news. On New Year's Day, Lily Tomlin officiated Kathy Griffin's marriage.
That's right.
Napoleon, tell us about that.
That is from one gay activist to another. Lily Tomlin did officiate the wedding of Kathy Griffin. And of course, she was in the news very recently for a controversial photo that she took with a statement on Twitter about Trump and holding up a now famous tweet, another icon. But one thing that's very interesting is that they are both LGBTQ activists. They've both been very vocal in their careers about how the LGBTQ community has supported them. So now we have a moment to just celebrate who they are as people and that their lives continue.
I completely agree with the news observations that you make there. We are going to move into our next segment, which is you're going to find unusual. We have it in our teas, and that's about sports. And we're queuing up sports in in our Q News tonight. We're dedicated to it, and one of the big news was since New Year's, Dwyane Wade, the NBA star, is speaking out about his 12-year-old son, daughter, and the reference of what's going on in the union between Dwyane Wade and Gabrielle Union. We've prepared this. Watch this.
This is what's going to come at you.
Right.
It's going to be a lot of negativity.
Yeah.
It's going to be a lot of hate. And it's not even just from my son's sexuality. It's just about being a young black man or a young black woman.
First and foremost,
right?
Yeah.
So everything that comes with that. So for us, man, when I respond to things socially, I'm not responding because you hurt my feelings. I'm not responding because I even care enough of what you're saying, because it's we say in the hood, it's ignorant. Why I'm responding is because I understand my platform. I understand that I'm speaking for a lot of people that don't have the same voice that I have, right? As a father, or, you know, I'm even speaking for my 12-year-old right now because I haven't allowed him to sit in front of a microphone yet. But I'm speaking for, you know, for so many others, in the LGBTQ plus community.
So as you just saw, Dwyane Wade, former NBA player for the Miami Heat, has a 12-year-old child by the name of Zion, who he intentionally publicly does not choose to pick pronouns, so male or female. He's going to let the child pick the pronouns themselves. He's embracing the fact that the child is part of the LGBT community. How important do you think that is as someone who is not only African American, but someone who finds themselves to be in the sports arena here in America, to be vocal about supporting the LGBT child?
Yeah, beyond amazing. He and Gabrielle Union came to Miami Beach, his wife, famous actress, came to Miami Beach Pride last year here in South Florida, and that was to specifically support their child, Zion. It's really quite big news because he is such a leading role model for the LGBT community of being an African American, sports, athletic, very masculine father promoting the community through his child. It's quite amazing.
He's very accepting.
Yeah. Also in Q Sports, we report, also very masculine, WWE wrestling. It's totally fake, I understand. I don't know that for sure. But there was a homophobic wrestler in the WWE. And this week, we report at Q News Tonight, they found out that he was a gay porn star.
That's right. That was Lars Sullivan, a.k.a. Mitch Bennett, who has been a longtime WWE wrestler. Now fans of both the WWE and LGBTQ porn, gay porn, have found out that in 2009, this same person was on Randy Blue videos. So if you've been a longtime fan of his, then feel free to look him up on Randy Blue and see where some of this controversy may have arisen.
Randy
Blue.
Randy Blue.
It's a company, Al.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's on your...
Ever heard of Randy Blue?
I may have heard of Randy Blue.
Yeah, maybe. All right. Interesting story of the go-around comes around. All right. We move into our next topic segment in Q News Tonight, and that is queuing up health. And we're reporting that Facebook has taken stepped up aggressive action against ads against PrEP. Now, for months, there have been ads that have been sponsored against PrEP, and many comments, social media posting about PrEP and its health damages. And it's been found that much of what has been done has been inaccurate or could be defined inappropriate. Well, that is Facebook's conclusion, and Facebook is now removing and pulling and preventing those ads on PrEP. Any thoughts about what Facebook is doing?
I'm curious that these are the types of ads that they've decided to pull. I know that there was all of this controversy over which political ads they were pulling or supporting, but that this is the first thing that they go through is potentially helpful advice and medical advice is disconcerting to me.
Yeah.
Now people will have less information about PrEP.
Okay. We move into one of our final segments of the night of our historic first premiere broadcast, and that is queuing up religion. And we're demonstrating to you that we're going to be reporting everything for the LGBT community. The United Methodist Church is in the news because they have voted in a historic vote of 53 to 47% to continue with their condemnation of the LGBT community. It has resulted in a major split in the United Methodist Church, and approximately 13 million will separate, or they're considering separation from the church organization. We've prepared this for you. Watch this.
The third largest religious denomination in the country is expected to split after an impasse over same-sex marriage and LGBTQ clergy. The United Methodist Church announced today the plan. The agreement comes just as sanctions were about to take effect that punish clergy who perform same-sex marriages. Church leaders will vote on that plan in May.
So as you just saw, the United Methodist Church is very, very split on whether or not they want to allow LGBT people who are going to be practicing members of their clergy or members of their congregation, or just allowing LGBT ceremonies in terms of wedding services throughout their churches. So it's very concerning right now. We see that they're considering splitting up into multiple denominations. How do you think that this is going to affect their congregation going forward?
From my reaction, I think that it is a time bomb that United Methodist can't stand up to. The attitude in America is now in the mid-70s in pro-acceptance of LGBT. Our media, many other churches, religious organizations and institutions, all except evangelicals, which are the slowest to the dinner party. The time is ticking for them, and the reason why they would even consider a split is the only way they can continue to hold on to this fundamental attitude of being anti-LGBT is to remove themselves from the church. So we'll watch exactly what happens. Another Cue Up Religion story that we want to report to you, America, is about the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court has decided it is going to hear a case of how religious schools can be able to discriminate based on the faith standards, which would be anti-LGBTQ. Napoleon, tell us a little about
right. As Al just explained, the Supreme Court has put together two separate cases where they will hear if the church and state separation in religious schools is actually something that is acceptable. There are various religious schools that have given ministerial exceptions and fired teachers over the fact that they identify or are inclusive in the LGBTQ spectrum. And right now what's being determined is if that is lawful, legal, or the actions that they should be taking. So stay tuned for more on that.
Yeah, and the court is going to hear the case, and we do not expect to hear the results of this case until mid to late June of 2020. That takes us out of religion to our final segment tonight. And frequently at Q News Tonight, we're going to end with good news. Lots of things that we reported tonight are news, but we want to bring multiple things to your attention that's really good about what's going on in the LGBT community. And in queuing up good news, we want to talk about Ellen DeGeneres. And last night at the Golden Globes, Ellen DeGeneres won the Carol Burnett Award for Outstanding Contributions to Television. And of course, nobody would deny that. But what happened in terms of the setup of the introduction of Ellen DeGeneres and her comments were quite motivational for the entire LGBT community all around the world. Watch this.
All I've ever wanted to do is make people feel good and laugh, and there's no greater feeling than when someone tells me that I've made their day better with my show.
Ellen DeGeneres took home the Carol Burnett Award at the 2020 Golden Globes on Sunday, making her the second person ever to receive the high honor, aside from Carol Burnett herself.
Did you ever think that you would see the introduction of Ellen DeGeneres and then her comments on stage that was so specifically LGBTQ plus centric that she would incorporate, even to the point of saying that this for Carol Burnett meant, I'm gay too? Did you ever think that we would see that on television?
It was definitely really exciting. Just like Kate McKinnon's lead-in speech, we weren't able to show that described. Ellen DeGeneres was an icon to so many people in and out of the LGBTQ spectrum because she showed us that we can do it. And so thank you to Kate and to Ellen for that.
Yeah, absolutely. America, world, that's it. we have done the first broadcast of Q News Tonight. It has never been done before. I want to thank the production staff. I want to congratulate Aaron. I want to congratulate Napoleon. You will never know how difficult this has been. There's a reason why there's never been gay news before, especially on a live basis, especially daily. There's reasons why, and maybe we should rethink why we accept those reasons. But in the meantime, we're going to be here daily for you at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You'll be able to watch us in YouTube, and YouTube television is going to be our principal platform channel, of course, Facebook and other social medias. If this follows any inclination like our talk show, it's happening out Wednesday nights at 8 o'clock. This is likely going to be watched by a lot of people. Our Wednesday night talk show, Napoleon is a host for. Aaron's been on many times. More than 600,000 of you watch a week. We invite you to share Q News Tonight with your friends. We are going to be the first platform that brings LGBTQ interest stories to you in a video, television fashion, and all completely live. Any mistakes that we made tonight, you get to see them because we're absolutely live. You're live, aren't you, Aaron?
I'm live.
You're live right now, and you're live?
As live as I can be.
All right, so that's it. Q News Tonight. We'll see you tomorrow night at 7 p.m., and we thank you for joining us. Remember, it's out of the closet and into the headlines at Q News Tonight.